Hey everyone, welcome back to another video, but don't forget subscribe in channel and leave your like. Formula 1 Commission agrees more stringent wing tests, removal of the limitations in the number of gearboxes, and specific regulations for Monaco to improve the racing. The first meeting of the Formula 1 Commission in 2025 took place today, chaired by FIA single-seater director Nicolas Tombatsis and Formula 1 president and CEO Stefano Domenicali. Changes were approved for the 2025 technical, sporting and financial regulations ahead of the 2025 season, the most important ones of which are listed below. New, more stringent, deflection tests on front wing will be introduced from the Spanish Grand Prix onward. New, more stringent, deflection tests on the rear wing from the start of the season. Finalization of the driver cooling system following work carried out between the FIA and the Formula 1 teams, supported by changes to define when such systems must be used. Removal of the limitations in the number of gearboxes used by teams, as the reliability of current designs renders this restriction obsolete. A number of revisions and clarifications to sprint and race start procedures, including those covering the aborted start. Furthermore, with the aim of promoting better racing at the Monaco Grand Prix, the Commission discussed proposals for Monaco-specific regulations. The Commission agreed to increase the numbers of mandatory pit stops in the race. These proposals will be further discussed by the Sporting Advisory Committee in the coming weeks. The FIA provided an update on the regulatory drafting process for the 2026 regulations, with an increased focus on Section C, technical regulations. The Commission highlighted the contribution of all teams and power unit manufacturers in refining aerodynamic performance and ensuring more efficient energy management for the next-generation Formula 1 cars. All regulatory changes are subject to approval by the FIA World Motorsport Council, WMSC. Lando Norris says no excuses left to not win F1 2025 world title. Lando Norris said there are no excuses for him not to fight for the world title, having finished runner-up in 2024. For many, the Briton enters the F1 2025 season as the favorite, but standing in his way is the reigning four-time world champion Max Verstappen. A slow start proved ultimately fatal in Norris' 2024 title charge, but with the score set back to 0, reigning Constructors' champions McLaren are widely expected to start the strongest in 2025, making Norris a title favorite amongst many predictors. Norris is aware of that expectation, saying there are no excuses in either his or the team's title pursuit. "I hope so for sure," he told media including PlanetF1.com of being favorite. "I mean, after last year, I think we kind of have no excuses. I guess in the past, we've had our fair share. I think this year we kind of don't have any. We have nothing to hide behind. We proved last year we have everything we need and everything it takes to fight at the top and be the best. If we're not quick at the beginning of the season, then we're just not good enough, and then we've not done a good enough job. But that's certainly not how we're thinking of things. It's not how our mentality has been." Kimi Antonelli's top speed during private Mercedes test topped one-time F1 race winner's best qualifying pace. Much has been made of Andrea Kimi Antonelli and the rigorous preparations he's undertaken to get ready for his Formula 1 debut. Mercedes had an important choice to make when Lewis Hamilton opted to swap the silver arrows for Ferrari ahead of the 2025 F1 season. Team principal Toto Wolff had plenty of options available to him but opted for potential over experience. Kimi Antonelli will make his Formula 1 debut at the 2025 Australian Grand Prix with George Russell by his side and 5 more rookies on the grid. The 6 rookies could be split into 2 groups, with Antonelli and Red Bull's new driver Liam Lawson in potentially race-winning cars, and the other drivers likely to be scrapping over top 10 finishes. Each of these drivers has a different level of experience when it comes to F1, as Lawson, Oliver Bearman, Haas, and Jack Doohan, Alpine, have all already made their debuts. Antonelli has done thousands of kilometers of testing, much more than Isaac Hadjar, Racing Bulls, and Gabriel Bortolito, Sauber, have managed. A report from The Objective has shared more details about one of Antonelli's tests at the Red Bull Ring, home of the Austrian Grand Prix. It turns out that even during a private run when he wasn't competing against anybody else, he was still pushing the car to ridiculous speeds. The report suggests that Antonelli, who was just 17 at the time, organized a private test at Red Bull's home circuit in the middle of April last year. This was more than 2 months before the F1 paddock descended on the circuit, but allowed Antonelli to learn more about Mercedes cars and the track itself. The report suggests that Antonelli reached 319 km per hour, 198.2 miles per hour, a staggering speed on F1's shortest track. When compared to the fastest speeds of every driver during qualifying for last year's race, Antonelli only outpaced Alpine star Pierre Gasly, 318 km per hour. However, this feat is much more impressive than it sounds. It has to be noted that Antonelli wouldn't have been in a 2024 Formula One car due to testing restrictions, meaning he was in a less powerful Mercedes. He's also comparing himself to the top speeds of each F1 driver during qualifying when their cars are perfectly tuned to be as fast as possible over one lap. It highlights Antonelli's fearlessness and propensity to push everything to the limit regardless of the situation. Antonelli was a name that many Formula One fans had heard ahead of his FP1 debut at Monza but wouldn't have seen in action unless they followed Formula 2. What they witnessed was a driver willing to push the car to the limits immediately and then finding the barriers on his second flying lap. Antonelli's data compared to Hamilton's explained his crash, but it wasn't a completely negative experience for the Italian despite the 52G crash. The report from The Objective went on to say that Antonelli's short stint on track raised eyebrows with analysts. They saw the youngster find a rhythm and reach speeds that is not typical of a rookie and tend to take dozens of hours of training. Antonelli will be well aware of his own potential by looking at the data, but will also know that he needs to smooth out a lot of the edges in his technique and racecraft before he's capable of challenging those at the very front of the grid. But the initial signs are very positive for the 18-year-old, and Mercedes will be very excited about his prospects. And you, fan? Do you think about Kimi Antonelli's situation? Write in the comments.